Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar DM, the channel dedicated to breaking down barriers for new players and dungeon masters alike. My name is Howard as always, and today we're going to be breaking down the Artificer class for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The player characters class that's not found in the player's handbook. It is actually found in this, the Eberron Rising from the Last War campaign guide. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so let's talk Artificers. Now, the Artificer is actually going to be the first official player character class to be released since the initial onset of the 5th edition rule set, and is the main reason why the Artificer is not actually in the player's handbook and is actually found in the Eberron Rising from the Last War campaign guide. Now, the Artificer actually adds a lot to the 5th edition game. They are masters of magical creation. They're able to craft magic items, actually infuse items with different magical properties, and it definitely gives our steampunk enthusiasts something to emulate and play with in the 5th edition rule set. Now, in order to break down this Artificer, we're actually going to break down the base class from level 1 to level 20, and then we're actually going to go over to the computer and break down a first level character sheet for some of our newer players. Now, we are not going to actually break down the different Artificer specialists or subclasses, just because this video would actually turn into an hour-long video, and I want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this experience, so we're just going to talk about the base class today. If you have any questions about the Artificer, playing Dungeons & Dragons in an online format, or anything else Dungeons & Dragons in general, make sure you leave a comment down here in the comment section below. I'll be sure to answer your questions. Also, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell for the channel so that way you're notified when the next video comes out. That may actually cover some of those Artificer specialties that we were talking about before. Alright, so let's break down this Artificer, the masters of magical invention and tinkering. Now, the Artificer is actually going to get magical tinkering at level 1, which is actually really funny. It's actually going to be a Artificer version of the Prestidigitation cantrip. It's not a spell, but it's actually going to be an ability the Artificer gets. And they're going to be able to touch an item and actually give it a magical property, such as emitting light, or emitting a recorded message, or an odor, or some other non-verbal sound. But the limitations of this ability are actually up to you. So if you have a wide imagination, you're going to be able to come up with a lot of really cool magical effects with this magical tinkering. At level 1, we're also going to get spellcasting with our Artificer, and instead of using a traditional spellcasting focus, we're actually going to be casting our spells through our proficiency with our tools, which is going to be really cool. And it's going to actually act as our focus for the spells. We can actually also use any item that we infuse with the infuse item ability at level 2, and we'll talk about that in a second. And basically what this is going to allow us to do is actually produce the magical effects from little items that we actually create to produce the spells. Now, looking at the Artificer table on page 55 from the Eberron book, we're actually going to see that we're going to get 2 cantrips and 2 level 1 spell slots at first level that are going to progress as we level up. And we're going to be able to recharge these spell slots after a long rest. Now, the other thing to actually think about is the fact that this Eberron Rising from the Last War book is only available either in hardcover or you do have to purchase it. D&D Beyond does not have a free version of the table available on their website, so that's something to keep in mind, that you might have to actually purchase this book either on Roll20, on D&D Beyond, on Fantasy Grounds in order to actually be able to use it, or you're just going to have to buy the actual hardcover book. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that the number of spells that we can actually prepare on a given day is actually going to be equal to our intelligence modifier plus half of our Artificer level, rounded down, minimum of 1, and we're going to be able to prepare these spells after a long rest. So this basically works kind of like the clerics and how they prepare their spells for every given adventuring day. And we're also actually going to get ritual casting with our Artificer. Now, the only ones that we can actually use ritual casting for are going to be the ones that we actually have prepared, so something to keep in mind. And then intelligence is going to be our spellcasting ability for our Artificer, making our spell save DC equal to 8 plus our proficiency bonus plus our intelligence modifier, and our spell attack bonus equal to our intelligence modifier plus our proficiency bonus. At level 2, we're actually going to get infuse item, and basically what this is going to allow us to do is we're actually going to be able to infuse a non-magical item or weapon with a magical property. And now we're going to get 4 of these infusions at level 2, and we're going to be able to use these infusions on 2 items. And we're only going to be able to match up 1 infusion with 1 item, so keep that in mind. And this is going to progress, again, based on the Artificer table, so check your Eberron Rising from the Last War campaign guide. There are a number of infusions in the book. You're going to be able to find them on page 61. It's kind of like the invocation rules with the Warlock, so I'm not going to cover them today, but some things that actually are included is actually some different infusions to enhance your weapons and actually create some magic items. So this is actually a really cool skill that we have here with infuse item. At level 3, we're actually going to pick our Artificer specialty, and we're going to be able to choose from 3 different choices of Alchemist, Artillerist, and Battlesmith. The alchemist is going to be the expert on alchemy and different chemical reagents in order to create magical effects. Our artillerist is going to be experts on projectiles and utilizing magic to create explosions. And then our battlesmith is actually going to be experts in protection and kind of plays like a field medic with its animal companion known as a steel defender. Now, like I said, we're not going to cover these in depth, but these are some brief descriptions that can give you kind of idea of how they kind of play in your Dungeons & Dragons game. At levels 4, 8, 12, 16, and 19, we're actually going to get ability score improvements. Now, these ability score improvements will allow you to improve one ability score by 2 points, or 2 ability scores by 1 point. Now, you can also take a feat at this level, but feats are an optional rule, so make sure you talk to your DM to see if feats are allowed in your game. Feats basically offer some really cool different little abilities that can impact your player character, but at the same time, ability score increases are going to be huge too, because they're actually going to improve our AC. They're going to improve our spellcasting ability, so either way, we can't really go wrong here with any of these options. At level 6, we're actually going to get tool expertise, and what this is going to allow us to do is actually double our proficiency bonus for any check that we make that uses the proficiency in our tools that we have. Now, you want to make sure you talk to your DM because especially with the Artificer, they're going to be able to craft magical items and utilize different knowledge related to these kind of tool sets. So work with your DM to actually kind of highlight these things with your player character as a part of your game. At level 7, we're actually going to get Flash of Genius. And what this is going to allow us to do is actually add our intelligence modifier to any ability check or saving throw as a reaction made by ourselves or any creature within 30 feet of us. And we're going to get to use this a number of times equal to our intelligence modifier, and this will recharge on a long rest. So if one of your fellow player characters is about to jump over a chasm and you think they might actually fail their saving throw, you can use that ability of Flash of Genius to give them that extra boost to get over that skill check. At level 10, we're actually going to get Magic Item Adept, and it's going to allow us to actually attune to 4 magic items, which normally you only get 3. And when we craft a magic item with a common or uncommon rarity, it's going to take us a quarter of the time to make it, and it's going to cost half the amount of gold to do so. So again, artificers, they love to craft, they love to make things, so something to consider with you and your DM as you're playing your game. At level 11, we're actually going to get Spell Storing Item, and what this is going to allow us to do is actually pick a 1st or 2nd level spell that has a casting time of 1 action. And we're going to be able to actually store that spell in a weapon or an item, and we can use this weapon or item as a spellcasting focus. Now, when someone's holding the object, the creature can actually use an action to produce the spell's effect that's actually in the item, and it's going to use our spellcasting ability modifier. Now, if this spell requires concentration, whichever creature actually activates the item is actually going to use their concentration, which is really cool because that means your fighter can activate a specific magical effect with this item and it'll use their concentration instead of yours, which is really cool. And the spell is going to stay in this item until it's used a number of times equal to double our intelligence modifier, or until we use this feature again on another object. So basically, in order to be able to use this, we're going to do this every long rest to kind of ensure that we have the full amount of charges in our spell stored item, and it's going to be really cool because it's going to have that flexibility to be actually used by one of our fellow companions. At level 14, we're going to get Magic Item Savant, and this is basically going to allow us to attune to up to 5 magic items, which is 2 more now than our typical player character can do. We're also going to be able to ignore the race, class, spell, and level requirements that are going to be required for attuning to a magic item. So an item like the Dwarven Thrower, which normally we can't use, is going to be allowed to be used by us if we're actually not a dwarf, which is really cool. At level 18, we're going to get Magic Item Master, and now we're going to be able to tune to 6 items, which is double the normal number that you can usually get as a player character, which obviously the Artificer is the master of magical invention. So now we can use a lot of our infusions, we're going to get some magic items, we're going to make some magic items. So now we're going to be able to use a ton of them and attune to 6 of them, which is really cool. And then finally at level 20, we're actually going to get Soul of Artifice, the capstone ability for our Artificer. And what this is going to do is going to give us a +1 to all of our saving throws for every magic item that we're attuned to. Which means if we're attuned to 6 magic items, we're going to get +6 to every single one of our saving throws, which is insane. We're also going to get the ability, when we're reduced to 0 HP but not killed outright, we can actually use our reaction to end one of our Artificer infusions, and now we're only going to drop to 1 HP instead of 0, which is going to greatly increase our longevity on the battlefield. Alright, so that was our level 1 through 20 level progression for our base Artificer. Now let's go over to the computer and break down that first level character sheet. Alright, so now that we're over here at the computer, we can talk about that first level character sheet. So we're going to look at this guy. His name is Kitu. He is an Artificer level 1 and he is a human. So the reason why we picked human is because it's just an easier way for us to actually display what the Artificer gets versus what the race gets. So there are certain races that will give you some really cool, interesting, different abilities, and I don't want you guys to get confused between the two. So we're just going to go with Human because they're the simplest. They actually just get +1 to all their ability scores. Now for our ability scores, we actually use the standard array, which is going to give us the numbers 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8, and we're going to distribute them amongst all these ability scores here, and then we're going to add 1 to all of them to figure out what our ability scores are. Now let's talk about our proficiencies. So for our armor and weapon proficiencies, we're actually going to have light armor, medium armor, and shields. And then for our weapon proficiencies, we're just going to get simple weapons. And then for our tool proficiencies, we're actually going to get Thieves' tools, Tinker's tools, and then we're going to be able to pick one more artisan tool that we can choose from on the artisan tools list. I'm just going to pick cobblers. Just because I like the idea of my guy being able to make boots. And then we're going to talk about our saving throw proficiencies. We're going to actually be proficient in Constitution and Intelligence saving throws, making this a +4 and a +5 respectively from that proficiency bonus we get here. And then we're going to come down to our skills here. We're going to be able to choose from Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, and Sleight of Hand and Perception. I'm going to pick Arcana and History because I want my guy to know everything about magic items, know all the magical properties, and be really good at knowing the history of different magic items. So that's why we picked that there, and those become +5. Now for our equipment, we're going to actually get 2 simple weapons, any 2 simple weapons. I'm just going to take 2 daggers because I feel like it's going to be good for this character early on in the game, so I'm going to do that. We're going to have a light crossbow. And we're going to get 20 bolts as well, just because those are what we inherently get. Oh, I put crossbow twice, bolts. And then we're also going to get a choice between studded leather armor and scale mail. I'm going to choose studded leather because I'm going to make my guy kind of like a cheap man's rogue in addition to being a really cool magic item user. So I want to be able to sneak without getting caught. Scale mail, you're going to get disadvantage on your stealth checks, so I don't want that. And then we're going to get Thieves' tools. So we're going to have to buy some of our other tools that we have proficiency with. So keep that in mind. And we're going to get a Dungeoneer's pack at level 1. So we'll put that here, Dungeoneer's pack. And then we're going to come over here to our abilities. The first thing we're going to get is actually Magical Tinkering. And we talked about that earlier on in the video. And I'll leave a link, or I'll leave a timestamp below for you guys to see that Magical Tinkering section. And then we're also going to get spellcasting. And we're going to need to look at the Artificer table in the Rising from the Last War companion guide in order to figure out some of these things. At level 1, we're actually going to get 2 cantrips. We're going to get 2 level 1 spell slots.
So I'm not really sure what happens here. My audio cuts out, but basically I'm explaining how you get your spells prepared from your intelligence modifier plus half of your Artificer level rounded down. But a minimum of 1, so that's why we have 4 spells prepared. I'm later going to go on to talk about how our spellcasting ability is going to be our intelligence. Our spell save DC is going to be made from the equation 8, plus our proficiency bonus plus our intelligence modifier, making it 13. And our spell attack bonus is going to be +5 from our +3 from our intelligence, plus our proficiency bonus.
We're going to skip this up here for right now because this is actually all about role-playing. We can fill it in some other time. But just know that this is something that's going to reflect how you play your character in role-playing situations, and that's why we're going to skip that today, because I just want you to know what the mechanics are of this class. Armor class. We're going to get our armor class. If we're not wearing armor, it's 10 plus our dexterity bonus. For studded leather armor, it's going to be 12 plus our dexterity bonus to make 14. So we get that +2 dexterity from there. Our initiative is going to be based off our dexterity bonus, so that's a +2. And humans move 30 feet because their inherent movement speed is 30 feet. Dwarves and gnomes only move 25 feet, so depends on the player character race. Our hit points, we're actually going to have a D8 hit die. We're going to add our Constitution modifier at level 1 to get 10 hit points here at level 1. Once we get beyond level 1, we're actually going to roll that D8 hit die. We're going to add our Constitution modifier and add it to this 10 to determine our hit point increases. So if we roll a 4, +2 is going to be 6, so we're going to have 16 hit points at level 2. Makes sense. And then we're going to come down here. So we're going to have our 2 daggers. So I'm going to put ×2 daggers. Our attack bonus, because this is a finesse weapon, allowing us to use our dexterity bonus because it is a finesse weapon. We get to use that dexterity bonus of +2/+2 from the proficiency to get +4. And because it's a light weapon, we can dual wield it, so we can actually use our action to attack and our bonus action to attack. But our bonus action is going to be with that offhand, so we're not going to get the benefit of the +2 piercing damage that we're going to get on our main attack. And our attack roll is going to be a d4. Our range is going to be 20-60, meaning our short range is 20 feet, long range is 60 feet if we throw the dagger. Long range basically means if you're beyond 20 but below 60, in this case, you're going to roll 2 d20s, add that +4, see if you hit. And then if we're within 20 feet, we're just going to roll 1, see if we hit. The 2 d20s, we're going to take the lowest value, so keep that in mind. And then we have our light crossbow. It's going to be +4 because it's a dexterity-based weapon, because it is a ranged weapon that uses just a trigger. It's not thrown. We're going to get d8 for our attack dice, and we're going to have 2 piercing damage as our, and it's going to be piercing damage as our attack stat. And we're going to add that +2 from dexterity there. And then our range is going to be 80, 320. So short range 80 feet, long range 320. And now this is basically going to be it for our Artificer here at level 1. The only thing we need to pick in addition to all this stuff is actually a background. I'm going to leave a link up here for a character creation video we did on a fighter that we gave a background. Backgrounds do give you extra skills. They also give you some extra proficiencies, so just keep that in mind. That's why I'm not putting it here, because I don't want you guys to get confused by what the class gives you, what a background gives you, what a different race gives you. So we're going to leave that blank for now, but make sure you pick a background before you play your game. Now, with that being said, that's going to cover our first level character sheet, and now let's get off the computer and wrap up our discussion about the Artificer. I'll see you over there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to cover our discussion about the 5th edition Artificer from the Eberron Rising from the Last War campaign guide. Now, there's a lot of information there, and I'm sure you might be confused, you might have some questions, so again, leave a comment down here in the comment section below for anything about the Artificer, or anything else Dungeons & Dragons in general. Also, make sure you like the video if you made it all the way to the end. It gives me some good feedback that you actually like what's going on here and you want to see more on the channel. Also, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that way you get notified when those Artificer Specialist videos come out or any other future content comes out for the channel. I hope you guys learned a lot about the Artificer today, and until next time, I'll see y'all soon.